live from the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Welcome to edition 91 of All Killa, No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have a mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison. Sick of the sound of my own voice over these past few weeks.
Thank you for being patient with this episode. We realised it's been a while coming. We were trying to get set up here at the Fringe, and then we've been plagued with illness and things. We meant to record yesterday where my father was present, but I'm actually quite glad I'm not having to sort of snip out any racial slurs.
I was so knackered yesterday. I was going to come up and do this yesterday, but I am so tired, and I'm just saying to you because I think usually when I wake up in the morning, like 7 in the morning, I'm starving because my body clock's changed because I've been nervous. I'm waking up at 4 in the morning, ravenous to the point of like, if I don't eat something, I'm going to die. Having to have like a sandwich and then go back to bed. Fucking mad, innit?
Are you living on your own?
Yeah.
It's a good job, innit?
Yeah.
So Rachel's having one of her 4 a.m. sandwiches again. It's like the mad bitch.
It's like a studio though, isn't it? So all I have to do is crawl out of bed and just go to the fridge.
Oh, that's great.
It's nice.
So one of those ones where you can like have a shit and fry an egg at the same time?
Absolutely. I am living the dream.
My brother, when he first moved to London, lived in a bed sit. That's what you call it, right?
Yeah.
That's what normal people call it. I think studio is how it's been upgraded.
Studio, because it's student accommodation, so I guess they're just saying to students, this is a studio.
Yeah,
it's
a bed sit, yeah. And so it was like a living room and then sort of like a sliding door that led to the kitchen with a toilet at the end, and it was one of the saddest rooms. He didn't have a bed either. It was just he'd sleep on the sofa. Yeah, and I remember my mum crying when we came back to visit him because he'd just turned 16.
Oh no!
And he lived in Mile End in London, and at the time it was quite spicy, and the kids used to play football against his door.
Boring fact about Mile End. Mile End tube station is designed the same way as the stations on the New York subway, and it is the only one that is designed that way on the London Underground.
Really?
Yeah.
What a good fact.
Amazing that no one wants to fuck me anymore. Yeah, it's a good fact. But you'll see that and you'll think, you know, sometimes when people say things and you think about them all the time, like, you just reminded me then about saying about your brother living in that bedsit. Comedian Danny McLaughlin said ages ago about people drying the clothes in the living room, and he said, mate, thing is, it's not good to live around your clothes. Right? And I don't think that's true or it would make any sense, but every time I put the maiden out to dry my clothes, I think of him saying that.
Really?
I've done for the past 2.5 years. Every single fucking time.
That's interesting. Well, like phrases stick in your head. Yeah. But I think doubt it is some people's phrase that's stuck in their head.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Someone thank you everyone who's come to see our Edinburgh shows. I was chatting to someone after the show the other day and they were saying, I've listened to your show so much, your voices are my internal monologue.
Are they all right?
No, they're watching my show. Clearly not.
My God! I'm sick of my own voice now. I don't know how you lot feel.
I'm sick of it.
Do you know what I did? I actually did the other day. Like I was sort of halfway through, sort of going in the very early days of the Fringe. I was going through my show, saying it out loud, and I just went, I don't want to hear myself. Be quiet. Have some peace for 5 minutes. Thank you as well for selling out.
Oh my God.
Live shows.
Selling out a huge venue one of the biggest venues at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is the Pleasance Grand. So 750 legends. In fact, this episode is being recorded on a phone sat on top a box of legend badges. Yeah. So that's for the people who have managed to get a ticket to our show as individuals and then the All Killa show. And there's a limited 200 that are going to get signed postcards. So whoever's in the queue first, basically.
Yes.
For that one. And Halloween's sold out.
Sold out now as
That's
well.
over 1,000.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? And in a time where people haven't got a lot of money and people are, really thinking about what they want to buy, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really kind of you. Thank you so much.
Because even I'm thinking about things like that. I'm going
we were just talking about
should
this.
I go and watch this? Should I go and watch that? And sometimes I'm looking and going, I don't think this is worth the money. But we are, is what I'm saying. Well, who are we doing? We're doing a serial... Well, we think he's a serial killer.
He absolutely is.
He's called Malcolm Webster. Mm-hmm. And he's a bloody rotter.
You might have seen a ITV show about him where the widower Rhys Shearsmith of the League of Gentlemen and Inside Number 9 played him, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Do you know what I always think? Because there was a scene in that where he shaved his hair off. I always think those scenes in films where it's like, okay, today's the day, the head shaving scene. You've got one chance to get it right.
Yeah, really have.
One chance.
Imagine sneezing during that.
You can't fuck it up, can you?
No.
One chance.
It's almost like doing stand-up.
Ooh. Almost. I'd rather shave my head, actually, than... I think I'll do that at one point in my life.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, like, you're very pretty. I think you can get away with
No,
that.
I don't. I've got a massive... in terms of forehead, I've got a big fod. Right, I think I have. Rather out of proportion. Did I say someone wrote under a comment on a YouTube video of me? I mean, never look at comments. I don't know why I did this. It was idleness during lockdown. And somebody commented, your features are too small for your massive face. Right, and I was like, oh.
What the fuck?
I know, people are mad. So then I remember telling my friend James, who listens to this podcast, I was like, yeah, and this guy wrote this. And he just went, yeah. I went, oh, so you think that too? Do you know? That's what everyone's thinking. The silence is speaking volumes here.
Not at all.
But I just think I'd have quite a big... I might do it one day, just for a...
Well, you'd have a massive for it if you shaved it.
Huge.
You go back to your
like
neck.
Ant and Dec.
Yeah. I know that, like, I'm so cursed physically anyway. I bet if I shaved my head,
true.
there'd be, like, a piece of bone sticking out that's probably the shape of a hook that you could hang things on. And probably a face on the back of my head like that Edward Mordrake whispering to me.
A face.
Do you remember him? You heard of him? You haven't heard of Edward Mordrake? He had a head on the back of his head, and he said it used to whisper things to him, and he eventually took his own life.
Oh my God, this is horrific.
Do you not know about this? Oh, Rachel, it's right up your street.
Did he have a head on the back of his?
Yeah, he had a face on the back of his head.
When was this?
Well, a while ago.
Oh my God.
Pre-Victorian or around that time.
Yeah, what were you going to say? Pre-pandemic.
Yeah, well, one of them anyway. Edward
God, that poor guy.
Mordrake. Oh, you can see his skull somewhere.
Oh.
He was an heir of an English peerage with a face at the back of his head, and according to the legend, the face could whisper, laugh or cry.
So it wasn't true?
Well, it says it's a legend, and everyone listening knows that legends are the truest thing you can be. He repeatedly begged doctors to remove it, claiming it whispered bad things to him at night, and he took his own life at the age of 23.
Fucking hell. Jesus. That is awful.
Yeah.
Speaking of awful, let's get back to Malcolm.
Apparently it was a woman on the back of his head.
Oh, here we go. Of course it was a woman, whispering things, making him go mad.
The duplicate face could not see, eat or speak, but was said to sneer when he was happy and smile while he was weeping. He asked doctors to remove it, and he said it whispered things one would only speak about in hell, but no doctor would attempt it.
Things you would only speak about in hell? What? Oh, it's a bit hot in here.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to take that pitchfork out my ass? Thank you very much.
You know what? Hitler is our arsehole. It's right to be down there.
Oh, God, what's up with Adolf today? Is that right? Fucking narc on me. Now, Malcolm was born on the 18th of April 1959 in Wandsworth in London. His father was Alexander Robertson Webster. He was from Fife. He'd been head of the fraud squad in the Met Police. He was described as a domineering man and a hard man.
He was very high up. He was a detective chief superintendent, and there isn't much higher than that. And that, his father's high-ranking police position, does become relevant later on.
Yes. Now, his mother was called Odette Blewett. She was a nurse. And he also used to, as he got older, Malcolm still used to call his parents mummy and daddy, even as an adult man.
Red flag.
I think it is.
Is that a Scottish thing, though?
South Wales, my dad used to, and his family used to refer to their parents as mummy and daddy, but not in a weird way.
I'm surprised they aren't mammies. They do, like, mam is where in North Wales it's mam, and South Wales it's mammy.
It was never sort of creepy, it was just always affectionate kind of
Do you say mum or mam?
I say mum. Or sometimes I'll say, if I'm talking about, I'll say my mum.
Yeah.
But I always call my mum.
Does your sister say mam or mum?
Mum.
Oh, interesting. Because Northerners, it's usually mam, isn't it?
Yeah. It's weird, but if I'm referring to her, I'll say my mum.
Mm.
But also I never, if I talk about my sister as well, or my dad and my mum, I never, like if I talk about my sister, I never say her name, do I?
No.
I just call my sister.
I don't even know what your dad's name is. I know your mum's name because it's unusual, but I know your
Tony.
sister's name. Oh, yeah, Tony. Yeah.
Not Anthony.
No.
Tony, that is it. On the birth certificate, it's Tony.
Really?
He gets really annoyed if a post comes that says Anthony. Oh my God, I don't believe my name's Tony, for Christ's sake. Yeah, it's just Tony. Which is quite weird, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is unusual,
Tony.
yeah.
No, in fact, I was going to change, when I started doing stand-up, I was going to change my name to Tony Fairburn, because I thought, oh, that'd be interesting, because there weren't many women.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I thought I could, they'd like, oh, I'm expecting a bloke. And then it's. You'd
have got more work.
I'd have got more work. But it's all worked out for the best, I think. Now, as a child, his nickname from the age of 7 was Pyro. This is Malcolm, not my dad, by the way.
Yeah.
Because he used to set fire to things. He was a pyromaniac. He was in the Scouts, and he said, like, just to, wherever he was, a fire had broken out.
That's so funny. The only badge he got.
He left school at 15 with no qualifications. He used to feign illness all the time. He'd pretend to faint a lot.
I've not even fainted in my life. I nearly fainted. I've got a bit of stand-up about it at the moment, but I've never even... I felt like I'm going to faint.
Twice I have. Once here, in this very flat, when I was staying with you during the Edinburgh Fringe one year, and 3 times, actually. The whirring of the extractor fan in the bathroom.
Really?
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times where I think I'm going to pass out, and I think it must be something with inner ear or something like that. Sort of certain noises, I'll be like, oh, I think I'm going to faint. Once when I had blood taken, when I was about 20, I passed out and I woke up and the nurse was tapping my face. I was like, oh. And then once on a tube when it was very hot and I was going to do a gig and I was like, I don't feel very well.
Oh my God.
And I just went... The thing is, I've never hit the deck. It's always been that feeling of, I think I'm going to pass out. But I've always managed to sort it. Oh, actually, I did an allergy test recently. As well as a prick finger. And I hate blood. I can't bear the thought of my own, like, makes me feel sick. And I did it, and luckily Tim was with me. So I did the test, and it was one you post off. And I was like, oh no. Oh, I think I'm going to faint. Oh God, I'm going to be sick. And I had to put my head between my knees while I sweated and went pale.
Sorry, for this from a prick of blood?
Yeah, I can't bear it.
I've always wanted to ask this question. I'm glad you're someone I know well enough to ask it. How do you deal with period then?
It's so weird that that's the question everyone... I don't know. So what it is with me, it's like... It's if blood is taken out of me, not in a natural way. So, like, right. If I cut my finger or whatever, you're like, oh, I've cut
nosebleed?
That's it. Nosebleed. That's different because you're not... It's if, like, if blood is taken from me... I can have an injection, no problem, not bothered. Mm-hmm. But if it's taken out of me, there's something about that's the thing that makes me feel sick. Or like if I have to, like having to prick my finger to make it come out.
Right. But if you have a nosebleed or a period or anything like that, it's fine.
That's like fine.
Do you still get periods or?
Why, you age shaming me now? I'm an old woman now, am I?
No, I wonder if you started them.
Oh, fucking hell. Have you started your periods yet? Yeah. Oh God, I hate stuff like that, me.
Well, what do you remember where you were? I remember coming on because your first period as well is nothing, and you're like, it's here. This is how it's going to be, and then you have your first proper period, and you're like, this is hell. Why is there so much blood?
I was at
home.
Alone?
No, my mum was there, and it just was like, she hadn't really given me the talk or anything. And so I was just like, Mum, I think I've started my period. I was like 11 or something. And she just sort of like silent gave me some always. Yeah. And then that was it. That's so like, I guess I'm on my own with this.
Oh, just me, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know. I'm a bit old-fashioned about that kind of thing, mate. I always feel a bit like, I don't want to talk about stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm weird like that. I just find it like, when some, female friend might start talking to you about stuff, I'm like, all right. We talk about something else. I don't know about your innards. Thank you very much.
You're such a fucking weirdly old-fashioned in some ways.
Just keep it to yourself, Woody. Like, I'm sorry you're having problems, but I'm not a fucking doctor. Go and tell a doctor. I don't want to think about your tubes. I don't care, mate. I don't care.
Funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a bit. You know what it is? I think I'm a bit squeamish about things like that as well. There's just something that I'm like things about pregnancy as well. I'm really. About.
Really?
I've got a real sort of, not a phobia, just a bit of a, ew.
You and the British Medical Council as well, they don't give a fuck about any of that shit.
Anyway,
He also, not only was he a pyromaniac, he also and fainted all the time. But I reckon he was pretending to faint. He also, when he was a teenager, told people that he had cancer. And then as an adult, when he would get with girls, he said, "Oh yeah, I had leukemia when I was growing up," and said he had heart problems. Say he had different kind of cancer. All bullshit.
Very weird, man. Very, very weird. He decides he wants to become a nurse. I think there was talk of him, he wanted to become, work in the police, but I think because his father had been such a, successful man, he felt intimidated by that. So he was like, well, I'll tell you what I'll go and do. I'll go and be a nurse. So his mum used to be a nurse, so he thought, I'll go and be a nurse. He'd also worked as a bin man, a driver. He'd done all kinds of different jobs, but then he settled on being a nurse. So he qualifies as a nurse. How many more times do I need to say the word nurse? And he qualifies, and at age 30, he goes to Dubai for 6 months. Now, he's forced to resign because he's working in a hospital, and there was an investigation into the deaths of 3 children who were all under 6 years old from cardiac failure. Now, because of the culture in Dubai, it's forbidden to have post-mortems.
That's interesting, yeah. So because it's a Muslim country, and that's, I suppose, of course it's like that it would be enshrined in law to have the same. But I thought it would be like, you can't do it on Muslims, but you can do it on anyone else. But, they would have been as well, the kids, wouldn't they?
Yeah, probably, yeah, I imagine.
Fuck, yeah.
Also, quick burials as well, because it's a hot country.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing in the ground.
But also
furnace.
I'm sure that's part of it as well, is right, you have to, bury them before the next, sundown or something. But it's rooted in that, yeah.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So,
how do you feel about that? Get it done?
Yeah, so, the thing with me is, my personal point of view is I don't see the need to have a funeral when somebody's dead, because I'm very much like, well, they're dead, let's be sad. I feel this is more stress than it's worth having to go through this. So when for example, my grandma died, it was that whole thing of I think she died, and it was the funeral was a week and a half or 2 weeks later, and you're just going, can we get this done? It's just prolonging the stress and the agony.
But that's what I mean. There's something to be said for right, they're dead, fucking whack them in the ground.
100%. Pop them on a fire, get them gone. I've got no sort of emotional connection to a corpse. Although some of my previous relationships may say otherwise.
There was no post-mortems because it was a Muslim country. It reminds. I've got a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, Faith, and her family, her mother and father, very sadly her late father now, they fucking they get on dead well. They love a wine with each other, but they like big drinkers, South Walian big drinkers. So they have a phrase called no post-mortems, and so they'll get absolutely hammered, wine drunk, and just be someone will take something the wrong way, and they all love each other deeply, but they'll fight when they're pissed and be like, I never want to see you ever again, and you've ruined my life,
I
really
wish I'd never had you,
all sorts of mad shit, and be like, there's no love in this house or whatever, just mad stuff. And then they'll come down the morning and be like, morning, how are you gonna have your eggs? And I was like, what? And when Faith explained, she was like, yeah, no post-mortems. She was like, people just say stupid shit when they're drunk. And she's like, no post-mortem. We don't need to sit down and go, well, do you want to explain what you said last night? Because she's like, no one fucking remembers.
I absolutely love that. I think that should be the way forward, because there is nothing worse. I have this thing where I say, look, we don't have to dissect the night. The night has happened. The night's been and gone. What is the point of going, oh, well, you said this and you did that and blah, blah, blah. There's no point. There is no fucking point. Let's just move on with our lives. There's nothing worse than somebody that goes, oh, well, you had a drink last night. I know. I bought the drink. I fucking did it to myself. I know I was drunk. It's such a weird sort of power play.
Yeah.
That, there's been times that I've been out with people who have been absolutely hammered, and I wouldn't say anything to them the next day, well, you were drunk last night. It's they know, they probably feel like shit today, embarrassed and stuff. Leave people alone.
Beer fear, yeah. I hate people
beer fear.
Sort of take advantage of that.
Don't, it's horrible, isn't it? He'd started injecting himself with insulin, which I don't know why he was doing this. And they think this is what he did to the children. Now, allegedly, and we have to say allegedly, they think his father might have used his influence in the Met Police and pull a few strings to get him out of Dubai at the time without any charges.
That wouldn't be a huge surprise. No. If any parent used their job to sort of, help their child out in a tricky time, especially because you wouldn't assume that your child was killing people.
Yes. he denies these allegations, Webster, of course he does. Now, his favourite saying was, why work hard yourself when someone could do it for you?
I've got a lot of time for that.
No, I haven't. I hate it. I'm very much of, if you want something doing, do it yourself.
I mean, I live by that,
Yeah.
but, like, I've got a lot of time for people who are like, fucking get someone else in to do it.
I've got this real thing of, like, I hate asking people to do things because I cannot cope with, like, if you say to somebody, oh, can you set the bin out while I'm doing it? I'll do it in a minute. Do it fucking now. I hate this culture of I'll do it in a minute or I'll do it later. Just do it.
It's because you can't be asked, right? Or like, oh, I'm going that way in a minute, I'll do it then.
Just do it. You know, I don't want to, like...
So what you want is people to jump at your every whim?
No. What I do think is that I just think this is this sort of like, oh, I'll do it later. Like, as a teenager, just do the thing that you're meant to do. Clean up, tidy up, do something. Or like, oh, I'll do it in a bit. I'll do it later. No, because you don't, it's a simple thing that you're just exercising your right to be a cunt here.
How is Tim?
Oh God, that sounds awful, actually. Well, this could be attributed to many people. I mean, not Tim, necessarily. My sister, for example, or sometimes my dad does things like this, where he'll be like, I'll do it later. Just do it now. Because when if someone asks me to do something, it's done.
Bang it out.
Yeah. Anyway, he meets Claire. He meets Claire Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Claire was born in Aberdeenshire, but she was living in London in Dulwich because she was pursuing a nursing career. Now, the name Claire Morris, everyone went to school with a Claire Morris.
Yeah.
So everyone knows a Claire Morris. Claire Morris at my school, I remember, got obsessed with a man from the Jesus Army.
Really?
So, obviously, I went to a Catholic school. We had these people that came in called the Jesus Army, who were deeply embarrassing. But it was the first time I've ever seen sort of mass hysteria amongst people where I was thinking, look at these fucking dweebs. And all my friends are like clapping along and I'm going, oh no, this is not good, right? So they thought they're hip and happening. They'd come to school, the hats on back to front and the camouflage gear on. And they had like trucks on heating parts. It'd be like, Jesus Army here. And they'd come to the school and they'd walk onto like I Am the Resurrection and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, this is not for you. So leave it. It was just really awful. And she got sort of obsessed with this guy. He was like, hey, you can call me Daz, that kind of thing. That on back to front.
Why is this making me feel uncomfortable?
Because I'll tell you why this is making you feel uncomfortable. Because it is uncomfortable. Now, so when I mentioned the Jesus Army to people who went to Catholic schools around the time that I did, they go, I remember the Jesus Army, they came to our school. And I genuinely, it was the first time I was like, this seems weird to me. This doesn't. I know I didn't want any involvement in it, but they were staying behind after school, going to like extra classes and like, oh, we're going to sit around and chat about Christ and all this kind of shit. And I'm thinking, do you know Oasis are out there at the moment? Why are you sitting here listening to this dweeb? Anyway, the Jesus Army is now disbanded because of grooming allegations.
Really?
Yeah. They're gone. You can Google, Wikipedia them. Also, it's one of those things like, I always find stuff like that, young people being gaudy, quite peculiar. It's like I always find adult baptisms weird. You've seen adult
being plunged into a river or a bath or whatever.
It's fucking funny.
Yeah, it's Harriet Dye has a great line in her new show. It's brilliant. Trigger warning. Go and see it at the Fringe, where she says she talks about like when I see baptisms. She said. She was talking about moving away from where she's from to get away from like problems. She went, and I found you can move away, but your brain's still in your head. And it's true that I think that when they're like, they might get a second of relief from whatever they're running from as they plunge into the water, and as soon as they're out again, it's like it's still there, mate. It didn't wash off whatever.
Still
that
feel
shit
sad.
Is. Yeah, whatever.
I still did what I did.
Yes, exactly.
So Claire, as I say, she was very close with her brother Claire. Their father had died when they were quite young, about 7 years old, and she was described as a practical person, a nice person. She, as I say, she's living in Dulwich with some of the girls that she was trained to be a nurse with. She meets Malcolm at a party. Now, the very next day after being at this party, he shows up love bombing her with flowers and gifts, and she ends up working at the hospital with Malcolm as well, and everything seems fine. 2 years into the relationship, they're not married or engaged or anything. And it was quite clear that he, this plan, as we'll get to know more about in a minute, he starts to say to her, hey, why don't you change your will and leave everything to me? It's like, I would have alarm bells ringing. So she says, yes, okay. I mean, we're a solid couple. He takes out life insurance policies on her. Not just 1 or 2. He takes out 10 life insurance policies on her. They get engaged, they get married in 1993. They have a traditional Scottish wedding, which I always just think that's, always makes me feel itchy because I think of kilts.
Yeah, we're obsessed with a comedian who whacks a kilt on. But we don't think he's Scottish,
No,
right?
he's not.
Are you sure? There must be some heritage,
There
right?
isn't. No.
My brother Alistair McLean, Alistair Stuart McLean, very Scottish name, where he's got a real affinity with the Scottish side of our family, and he has a full. He got married in his kilt.
That's fine.
Yeah,
but this person also as well apparently showed up in a pub here at the Fringe recently.
not in the kilt.
No, worse. Like, this is a big guy as well. Apparently walked into his bar complaining that no one had turned up to his show, but because he was drunk and he's big and quite,
Oh, yeah, he's a tall boy,
not conscious of his, the size of everything. He knocked one person's pint over, and they were like, "Oh fucking hell, that was an accident." Moves again and does it to someone else. The comedian, lovely man, Jake Lambert walks in, sort of walks over with his pint. He turns around and knocks his pint out of his hand as well. So it was like this whirlwind of like, "What are you doing?
Go and sit on your hands in the corner."
I mean, thank God that he didn't have a kilt on, because his dick would have been knocking something over. I have no doubt about. Fucking hell! Just be aware, is what I'm saying. Now, Claire's brother has said as well that how controlling Malcolm was. So he used to say things like to her, like, "Stand up straight, don't put your hands in your pockets." And my friend Ellie, who, when I watched The Widower recently, I said, "Oh, you should watch this, you'd like this." And the first text message I got off her, she's from Liverpool, and the first was like, "If any man told me to take my hands out of my pocket, it'd be the fucking last thing he ever said." I was like, yeah, exactly, right. So her brother was like, I couldn't believe that she was letting him be like that, because if I said that to her, she'd been like, "You can piss off." You can see in the wedding videos, footage of the wedding video, and he looks like...
Have you been watching a wedding online?
No, it's on the documentary.
Okay, fine.
Look, I wouldn't even watch a friend's wedding. I'm not. Look, I don't even want to see weddings live action.
I don't even want to go to them. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not interested. Right. So he sat, because obviously he works at the hospital. Claire knows nothing about his history of like pyromania and lying and all the rest of it. He obviously has access to drugs at the hospital, and they moved to Scotland, of course, where Claire is from. She went back to university and she liked being in Scotland, but he picks a very remote area to live in, away from everybody. Now, her health...
You think that's part of isolating him?
100%.
Is it not just he wants to live in Scotland and it isn't that populated?
No, I think he just wants her where she's vulnerable and relies on him, because her health starts to deteriorate because he's drugging her. She starts having blackouts, sleeping for hours and hours and hours.
It's temazepam, right?
Temazepam, yeah. She's confused by everything. So she starts to rely on him when she's been very independent before. This is part of his plan. She's like, "Oh, I don't feel capable of it. I need to, he needs to help me with things more." But this is where he decides. So he's got his 10 insurance policies, and he's obviously at the time, he goes, "Do you know what? It's time to put the next bit of the plan in action." He buys a car for the first time.
He's also seen hanging around in a field and by a bit of quite remote road, just sort of checking it out.
Must be a fucking scarecrow. Yeah. He's trying to emphasise, I am. So that's working out. So
he's just knocking around in an area that becomes significant. So it's on the Ochen Hoover to Tarvers Road in Kingudi in Aberdeenshire.
Lovely.
So it's that stretch of road. I'm sure that is like the most offensive iteration.
Two people will be nodding that they know it. One person will be screaming in fury that it's been pronounced bad.
Yeah.
So he's been knocking around there, planning things. One evening he says, "Oh, I need to collect something from the hospital. You need to come with me." So he drugs her, puts her in the car, drives to this place, but he drives into a ditch, then...
Very slowly. He also happens to put 4 jerry cans of petrol in the boot, right?
Do you know when people say jerry can? I hate it.
Really?
I fucking hate it.
It sounds like a comedy act from the 90s.
Hello, I'm Jerry Can.
Put your hands together for Jerry Can.
I hate it. I don't... certain words just give you the ick.
Really?
Yeah, it just gives me really...
Is it as bad as the C word?
See, that's different. That makes me feel sick.
Okay.
But this is just like, just like a mild...
I think jerry can is quite jolly.
There's another... What's the other word that really fucking bugs me? And when I hear it, I just go, don't... Just say say anything else other than that? I'll remember it in a bit. Anyway, he's put all the petrol in the car. He sets the car on fire.
So it very slowly goes into a ditch. So an off-duty policeman stops and says, "Is everything all right?" And he says, "Yeah, it's absolutely fine." He said, "Is there anyone we need to get out of the car?" He said, "No, there's no one else in the car." And then it bursts into flames.
And then he's like, "Oh, my wife's actually in it."
Oh yeah, I forgot I put my wife in there. So he claimed that he swerved because a motorcyclist was coming in the wrong lane in the opposite direction. And he was in hospital for a week after the crash. He had extensive testing for everything. But the hospital were like, he's not injured. His pulse was completely normal right after losing his wife and being in a car accident.
His pupils weren't dilated.
His heartbeat, absolutely everything. But he said, no, I was injured. And he even wore a neck brace to Claire's funeral. Like fucking Keith Lemon.
That's who it is. I'd forgotten about that.
The neck brace.
Yeah. Such a strange character, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not particularly funny, is it? It's just an assault on the senses.
Well, do you know what? I've seen some bits of Celebrity Juice, and he's very quick.
Oh, yeah, and also he doesn't, he has no shame either, and I quite like that.
Yeah, I don't give a shit, just what's funny.
I quite like that. But
loves clothes, obsessed with clothes.
I just think it's such a bizarre thing. Just Keith Lemon.
But it's just a bit of madness that allows you to be wild, I think, which is... I've got a lot of time for that.
Maybe I'm too old for it now.
Yeah.
I've matured now. So, the police were like, well, this has been an accident, the case is closed, let's have the funeral. There was one policeman, though, so obviously an off-duty policeman, twice asked him before the car exploded. He was there. Is there anyone in the car? He said no. Now, I think it's the same police officer, although there is a police officer who in his spare time decided to investigate this death.
Yeah.
Because the car was going slow, there was no evidence of skid. Why couldn't she escape?
They knew that she hadn't been hit at speed because her body was in exactly the same place, her body hadn't moved. Yeah. So they knew that there was no kind of high impact. She just sat very casually in the passenger seat.
A friend said as well that a month earlier Claire had said, "Oh, we had a car accident the other day." So he's doing dry runs for this thing.
You know.
At the funeral, of course, he's crying and sobbing and, oh, this is awful. But he doesn't waste much time. He gets his insurance.
Well, there's a really sad quote from Claire's brother, Peter, who says he said he was holding his hand during the funeral. He said he was squeezing my hand for support. And he says most people had their heads down, and I glanced at him and he was full of tears, as I was. And that convinced me up until a few years ago that he had lost his wife in an accident. In reality, I was holding the hand of her murderer.
Ugh.
Awful, isn't it?
What a shit. He's a shit, isn't it?
He's a shit, yeah. He later, retrospectively, got diagnosed as being a psychopath with narcissistic personality disorder. We talked about, his heartbeat being completely normal after it and things. I know this is going to sound sort of perverse, but, where do these people get joy? If he's not getting a kick out of murdering, he can't be getting a kick out of the life insurance either, right? What do they enjoy?
This must be where this is his enjoyment, because he manages to spend the £200,000 he's got within 6 months. He spends the lot.
I could do that fucking easy.
It's gone, right? I don't think I could. I think I'd be like, put that under the mattress until I'm old. I think with me is because I've had so many shit jobs and been so skint that whenever I do get paid well for something, I'm like, please put that there, don't even pretend it's not real money.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, it's not real money, just ignore
I'm
it.
the opposite. I'm like, this is going to go, so I might as well just put so you're going to get taxed on it or whatever, fucking get it gone before I knew.
The thing is, now being self-employed, tax never fucking ends, does it? It never ends.
No.
I may as well open my fucking arsehole. Fuck me up the arse. It just never ends. But I think that's probably where he got his joy. The only thing I think he enjoyed was getting money and buying stuff that he wanted. He just wanted stuff. So, and the marriage is just a means to the end to get the stuff that he wants. But then obviously he probably doesn't get much joy from it because he's in the same cycle again, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just a really strange. I can't quite get my head in how they operate and how it feels. Yeah,
it's very, very weird.
A firefighter as well at the scene was also what was going on there? So the police were a bit sort of like, as were the fire service. And in fact, one of the firemen gave a statement at the trial and said, I still think, why didn't the person who was there not pull the person out of the vehicle?
Yeah.
So Geraldine Oakley got together with Malcolm very shortly after Claire died. Now she was working at the same hospital. That was it. She worked as a computer manager. Now, who am I to say? But it was straight out the gate, so they got together. So maybe there was a spark or a frisson before. But immediately, Geraldine,
or maybe he was planning ahead for his putting the things down for his next.
Yeah. And that's no shade towards Geraldine. We're talking about a master manipulator.
Yeah. Like, exactly. Yeah.
So Geraldine starts to become really fucking suspicious of him because he goes, do you think they'll do a second autopsy on my wife? And she was like, what? We're just at Nando's making order, fucking men. What you want about? And so they kept their relationship a secret because I think people would have judged, because of the time difference. And he said, Claire was an epileptic and she was on medication, and she wasn't. It was just like another weird lie that he'd sown. So when it came to the trial, Geraldine testified, and she had gone to go, right, I'm going to bring this up with the pathologist, but just at the last minute gone, no, what am I doing? Like, let this poor man get on with his life.
Let him grieve.
Let him grieve.
Let him enjoy his money.
Yeah. 1995, he moves to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And then he gets... This is quite strange, but it is quite 1995. He starts a friendship with a woman called Brenda Grant. So this is about a year after Claire's died.
Yes.
It's a phone friendship. So they just they're sort of like, they just phone each other, and they sort of meet up eventually and start a relationship, like how people use the internet now.
He takes her on a surprise trip to Paris.
Oh yeah,
to tell her that he's got leukemia.
It's
which he hasn't.
It's so bonkers. So, oh god, there's so much to this. So they used to call each other, then they meet up, they really click, and they start a relationship. Now she says he used to always offer me drugs, and I'd be like, no.
It's a night, is it, mate?
But no, in a like, you might, this will help you sleep better, or I'm worried that you're looking a bit peaky, maybe take this. And she was like, I consider myself lucky to be alive because I think he was trying to drug me and sedate me so he could kill me.
Fuck.
And apparently she would sort of like be like, where are you getting all these drugs? And he'd immediately burst into tears. So she was like, he would cry to avoid difficult situations.
God.
Look at me saying it like I don't do it. When my partner eventually calls me on my bullshit, like, I think I must be due on my period.
Why does nobody like me?
So, she gets this out of the blue trip to Paris to say that he has leukemia, which is, it's bonkers to me. And then he's also seeing someone else at the time.
Yes.
In London. So she's in London, her name is Simone Banerjee. And he used to say, I have to go to London for my leukemia treatment. And he would just fly and see her. Wild.
In the interim,
they've become friends now, those two women. I love it when that happens.
I like that. Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
We know a comedian who got messaged one day by someone who looked a lot like her. And was like, are you going out with so-and-so? And she's like, yeah, I'm engaged. And she's like, me too. And 6 other women who look just like us.
What?
Yeah.
That happened to her?
Yeah.
Is it true? I wouldn't believe a word that came out.
Fucking hell, mate.
Look, I'm sorry. Listen, anyone else that said that, I'd be like, fucking hell, there's a story. With her, I'm like, you sound like the protagonist to me. I do not. I think you probably had 5 blokes.
Fucking witch.
No, listen. I'm all up for believing women, but sometimes the woman,
Oh, by the way, this trip to Paris, the leukemia trip.
I love a leukemia trip.
I think BMI Baby do a leukemia trip, don't they? Is it called BMI? Be My Baby sounds like something in, you know, like in the 90s, where they used to make women get on scales after having a baby on telly.
On TFI Friday, Chris Evans would be clapping along.
Fucking horrible. Did I tell you I met Chris Evans?
No.
Weird.
He's tall, isn't he?
Very tall.
Yeah.
Tall. He wasn't weird, it was just weird to meet him. I did a gig in his hometown and he sort of just came striding into the green room because I was on with Russell Howard, and he sort of knows Russell Howard, and he's just got this like big dick energy of someone who was rich in the 90s and sort of feels like he's just got the lovely optimism that everyone can do it, and it's like, ugh.
Was he a nice person?
He was all right, actually. Yeah, he was okay. In fact, I think friend of the show Will Duggan went out on a kayak with him the next day.
I can't imagine from words.
Stop it.
Kayaking with Will Duggan.
And so this leukemia trip to Paris was 10 years after they first started speaking. She just out of the blue he was like, come to Paris with me.
10 years?
10 years. 2005 this happened.
In the interim of all this, he's managed to go off to New Zealand and get married.
Yeah.
He goes to New Zealand, he meets Felicity Drunk, marries her in Auckland.
She's an oncology nurse, so hopefully she can call his bullshit.
Well, yeah, you would hope. And then he starts doing the same to her, he's drugging her.
They have a kid.
They have a child, they have a son. He moves her back to Scotland, again, I think isolating her.
Mm-hmm.
Their house mysteriously burns down.
Well, let's talk about the honeymoon first. So they get married. She immediately on the honeymoon sleeps for 36 hours after he's like, let me fix you a drink. And then I mean, obviously, like, you know, sometimes time zones and jet lag, but 36 hours suggests that he had drugged her. And on another time they'd been away together, he'd made her a drink and she had passed out for 18 hours. She had like, she was seeing double. And when she had blood tests, they were like, oh, there's something wrong with your liver. We think this is the problem. And it was, of course, Malcolm was drugging her.
Jesus.
So yes, then the house fires start.
Yeah, burns down the house in
Pyro
Scotland.
fucking steps
Pyro's back. Burns down the house in Scotland. They move back to New Zealand because they've got nowhere to live.
One of her parents, he attempts to burn down one of her parents' houses.
Sets fire to a chair in the house.
3 house fires.
Fucking hell.
And this, they think, was him trying to go, well, there's danger everywhere. Gosh, we nearly died in a house fire. You should probably get life insurance. And he gets a life insurance policy worth $750,000 altogether because there's 9 insurance policies.
Oh my God. He man's mad. He's been saying to Felicity, she's got money, she's a financially independent woman, but he's been saying to her, oh yeah, well, we need to, when we go back to, we're going to buy a house, we start looking to buy a house. Oh yeah, well, I need access to your bank account to do this, to do that, to do the other.
He said the money from Scotland hadn't been transferred over yet.
Yeah.
But get this, it was all stuck in, it was moving to New Zealand and then he had to get it sent over to Auckland.
When actually he's just cleaned her bank account out and taken all the money. They have an appointment at the bank to talk about buying the house.
It's the final deadline.
This is it, yeah, the final deadline, because he's been going, oh, I'll get you your money's on the way, you'll get the money. And they're on the way to the bank meeting, and he's like, right, well, this is it, I'm going to have to kill her, aren't I? February 1999, he's like, right. They get in the car, they're driving on the motorway, and he goes, oh, the steering on this car's a bit weird, isn't it? And it starts to veer off the road. Now she grabs the wheel.
Goes across 2 lanes of traffic and then moves back again.
So she grabs the wheel and she's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Because she was like, there's nothing wrong with this steering wheel, it works fine. And so it goes off into a ditch.
He stops, it goes into the ditch. He screams at her to stay in the car. He's got petrol in the boot of the car and a lighter. None of them smoke. Now, it's quite clear that he was intending to set this car on fire. Now, 2 police officers were passing. They stop and go, is everything okay? He then pretends to have a heart attack.
But he got out the car and he went round to the boot and he was screaming, stay in the car, and she's trying to get that. And she was like, fuck that. So she jumps out the car, phones her lawyer and was like, come and pick me up and take me to the bank. And that's when he starts to have this heart attack.
He's such a dweeb.
And that's when she goes to the hospital thinking, oh God, there's something wrong with him. And that's when she checks her bank account and basically 140 grand in New Zealand dollars had completely gone from their joint bank account.
But he does it again. They take this car to the garage. The mechanic's like, there's nothing wrong with this car whatsoever. She's suspicious, but he does it again. He sedates her heavily. She's in the car, and it's only her mobile phone that was ringing that woke her up that saved her life. So she was like, well, I'm going to go to the police because, you know, the money, everything's not adding up now. He does a runner from his wife and son.
Well, yeah, also he starts to be charged now. 4 warrants are issued for his address, and then he didn't turn up at court obviously the warrants are out. 2 of them are for arson. The 3rd is for selling, giving, supplying or administering a drug. And the 4th is for...
Hello.
The 4th is for disabling or stupefying his victim, which was his wife. She confronts him and was like, "You're trying to kill me." And he goes, "You would have died happy."
Oh, yeah. That's such a weird thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, really weird.
Again, put that on a B&M Bargains. I'll die happy. He does a runner, doesn't he? Goes back to the UK.
Yeah.
And he starts seeing... This is where Simone is still on the back burner, isn't she? She's still around. She's rich. She's got money, Simone. He starts to guilt trip her. He starts saying, "Oh, let's get into a relationship." He's like, "I'm dying, I've got leukemia. You really should have IVF, we should have a child." She starts having this fertility treatment at his suggestion. And he's never mentioned the fact that he's still married with a kid. Felicity is still in...
It's a scumbag.
Should we
pause this for a second and go into our room? Right, we've moved. I've got a flag now, quickly. And the lovely Dan that came in is living with his Dantian and has had the most stressful day of his life. Now, you will know, Rachel, that...
You hear that alarm? That's him now.
You will know that as you come into my bedroom, there is a takeaway chip packet, like a red McDonald's one, sellotaped to my bedroom door. Yes. Now, that is because my dad came to stay with me. And I found out on the first day, he was sort of like fucking scrabbling about like a beetle in the dark at about 6 a.m. and waking me up and was like, "What time is it?" And then tried to go for a walk, but it's just because he wanted to buy cigarettes because he can't walk. Anyway, I said, "What are you doing up?" And he went, "Well, I went for a piss and I got lost." So I found out he went into Kath, who has night terrors. That man is standing in the corner of her room. Well, the night terror came true because my fucking dad wandered into her room and was like in the room. So he obviously realised he's in the wrong room and went out. Now, we have a room that's actually bigger than some of the bedrooms that we've got someone staying in. And so the sofa's in there and stuff. So Dan, who's staying in there, was out, because he's a young lad at the Fringe having a nice time. So my father finds it like fucking Goldilocks, goes in, sits on the sofa and just passes out because he can't remember where he can't recognise it in the dark, doesn't know the flat, doesn't want to try everyone's doors after freaking the shit out of Kath. So then Dan comes in about 5 o'clock in the morning after a bender, and then I'm making assumptions there, but he probably wasn't up reading, was he?
No, I mean, it's not out catching stories of Norse gods in classical music, is it? As in the boozer.
So he comes in to see an 80-year-old man he's never met in his life before, completely passed out, snoring, probably hearing aids out as well, so he can't hear him.
Should I have hearing aids?
Yeah, 2. Yeah, they're fucking no good.
I don't know about that.
So he's like, "Who the fuck are you?" Obviously, because my dad is a stranger. And then my dad was like, he said, "I slept in the room the sofa's in." And I said, "You did?" I said, "I hope you didn't, because that's someone's room." He went, "Yeah, I know, I had a chat with him." I was like, "What do you mean you had a chat with him?" He went, "Yeah, I came in about 5 o'clock in the morning and was like, 'Who are you?' I said, I had a nice chat." I went, "You didn't have a nice chat because you were in someone's bedroom without their permission." So fucking poor dad. And then my partner went on Moonpig and made a card that says, "Sorry, my partner's father came into your room. That you came into your room to find my partner's father passed out in your room and then had a chat with him at 5 o'clock in the morning." Can you believe that?
Oh, God.
And then he put inside the card, "I can't believe I managed to find this card. It's exactly right for this occasion." But yeah, so my fucking dad was like, "Oh, lovely guy." I was like, "Lovely guy, you just broke..."
"Oh, Dan." That's what he said.
Dan. Yeah, "Oh, Dan."
How do you know it's called Dan? We had to chat.
Yeah, we had a chat. I was like, "You didn't have a chat. You're freaking this poor lad out."
Oh, bless him.
Bless who in this situation? Not my dad.
Oh, no.
Entitled.
He's just an older man.
He is, and you know what?
Navigating the world.
He's not navigating, he's allowing everyone else to do it for him. Actually, that's what I find tough is, it's hard, isn't it, when you see your parents, well, you probably haven't got there yet, but I've got old parents, which has always been a sort of sensitivity of mine, because I got, it was another thing that people made fun of me for, was having old parents. And now, especially because he hasn't taken care of himself, he's smoked all his life and stuff, that he's 80 next year, he's just got very old very fast, and It's hard.
It is. It's my so my mum is the youngest of 6, and she was always like, but her older sister is like 20 years older than her.
Yeah.
So she was always like, I was, people were saying like, is that your grandma? Is that your? And it's like, no, it's my mum.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult having like, physically, that you can see older parents. But yeah, it's I would kind of dread that kind of thing. Obviously I do it with my grandparents, didn't I? So it's like I've had a dry run.
Yeah.
Already. But when I remember when my grandparents died, I was like, got to go through this again at some point, haven't I?
Yeah.
Isn't life wonderful?
You could die before them, Rachel.
Fingers crossed. I'd love to. I often feel, it's a very morbid conversation, but I often feel that, sometimes I'm like, and Tim gets annoyed at me for saying this, I don't see myself being an old woman, if that makes sense. Like, I don't have I don't have any sort of...
I've always thought that I'll die tragically young, which I think I'm too old to do now. But
yeah, I'm too old to do. But I think I always think I'll be one of them that's like, oh, she just quit smoking, and now this. That's what...
Yeah, it's no age, is it? That's what I want people to say before.
Can I just say someone different? But R.I.P. so and so, 73 years old. That is no age. I'm like, that's actually quite old.
Yeah, that is quite old.
It's not like he was 17.
Who was it? Was it someone who died the other day?
I think so. I can't remember who it was. Who was it? 73 years old. Absolutely no age. Like that's actually quite a good innings if you think about it.
It definitely is. Yeah.
Anyway, where were we?
We were talking about Malcolm, weren't we?
Malcolm.
Before we moved from the kitchen. Right. Yeah. So he's with he goes to New Zealand and he starts a relationship with Christina Willis. Constantly borrowing money from her, never paying it back. Burnt a computer hard drive in her garden.
Hell, what are you up to?
And for the final flourish, tells her that he has cancer.
Yes, and wants the will in his name and power of attorney.
Fuck that.
Now, she left him because he left. Sorry, I think he 100% left her when he realised how rich Simone was.
Yeah,
and was like, "Oh, fuck this, I'm off."
Yeah.
Right. So he's got like several people on the go at any one time. So the weird thing that happens is Felicity's family wants some answers. They're like, right, this still isn't satisfactory to us. They go to the police in New Zealand and they do tests on Felicity's hair. Now, it's obvious that she has been drugged. Her hair is still showing signs of temazepam in her body. Now, the police contact Grampian police in Scotland and they say, there's not enough evidence to reopen this case. Claire's been dead for 12 years. This bizarre thing happens. Felicity's sister, her job means she has to travel to the UK to go to a conference for a domestic abuse trust. She meets a police officer there, a female police officer, and they start chatting.
You didn't have to say it was a female police officer.
Well, I didn't want
if they're in attendance in like the 90s at a domestic abuse thing, I doubt it's going to be a man.
Well, it was. I didn't want a man getting credit for what happened. That's why I wanted to say it was a female police officer because I haven't got a name. I wanted to be like, yeah, it's up to the fucking women to sort this out. So they meet and they discuss it, the sort of what's happened to Felicity. The police officer's like, do you know what? This is weird. I'm going to contact Grampian police and tell them that I think this man's dangerous. So they contact them. In the meantime, the guy in the documentary I watched kept saying, and of course at this point there was a sliver of liver that belonged to Claire. I'm like, stop saying sliver
it's like
of
the
liver.
It's like you'd remember that Wine Gums advert. There's like a moose loose about this hoose a level of liver.
Exactly. So he kept saying this, but what happened was they had a tiny bit of liver left. And they decide, because toxicology's moved on from 1994, they're like, right, okay, let's test this sliver of liver, which they do, and they find temazepam in the liver. Now, this obviously meant she was being drugged as well. They reopen the investigation. Now, in this point, he does a runner to England from Scotland, but he gets caught, and he's charged with Claire's murder and the attempted murder of Felicity. And it all comes out then, doesn't it? This is it. There's a trial, which I haven't really got much about, which thank fuck. This is 17 years after Claire has died as well. This is the 5th of July 2011.
Can I say about the Osmond letter?
Yes, of course.
So Simone is planning to marry him, He says he's got terminal leukemia, so she wants to marry him before he passes away. So she changes her will and everything and says, all right, leave the entire estate to Webster. Also, like, that's just what he wanted. He's not going to live anyway.
Can I just say my phone's rang, and it really is the month of unknown numbers on your phone, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Edinburgh, your phone.
Do you want to answer it?
No, absolutely not.
Be your PR being like, you should be in a thing now.
Leave a message.
So the police go to Simone and give her an Osmond letter, which I've never heard of before. But
Makes you think of Richard Osmond, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, like, an Osmond letter is when you say to someone, your life is in danger because of this person. And, like, you're in immediate deadly harm. So they basically said, listen, this is his past. He's got a wife already. He's got a son. He's not told you about that. And, you know, lots of women in his life had died. So she just reads this letter and is like, no, it's absolute nonsense. And after he's convicted, she asks for him to be put in solitary confinement, because she was like, she said he's such a good actor, he would give Colin Firth a run for his money.
That's a weird choice.
Colin Firth, well, think of the time.
Yeah.
She said he's very charming and that's what makes him so plausible. So yeah, she basically thought, because she used to go out sailing all the time, she was like, he's going to drown me and stage it as a boating accident.
Yes, and that is basically what he was going to do.
Yeah, because she found out that her life jacket, the foil on it, had been punctured, and she hadn't checked it since she'd been sailing with him. Everyone else's life jackets are fine, so she says, I've got no doubt that the boat was the way that I was going to go.
Fucking hell.
Scary, innit?
So weird. He's sentenced then, isn't there?
Can I just say he had other girlfriends, and there were some quite creepy stuff. 15-year-old who had an abortion because he'd got her pregnant. A woman who took her own life, and another married woman. These are all... they're all...
this guy's weird.
Their identities are a secret. But he was also carrying on a relationship with all these women. No shade on them, but it's not much to write home about. But it's charm, innit? It's absolutely charm.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing to write home about.
So how they get him is a bit like, at first, like Al Capone with the old taxes. So in 2007, they searched Simone's house because the yacht club, or the angling club, sorry, that he was a part of, he'd been embezzling funds. So they were like, right, well, we'll get a warrant. And they seized his laptop and an unlicensed gun.
What?
Yeah, he had a gun as well. And he was like, oh no, it's just an antique. And they were like...
Do you know if he applied himself in other areas of his life, he could probably have done something quite good. I mean, the tenacity and the commitment to what he was doing. He says, you know, it's making... I mean, this is a lot of work. For a man who thought other people...
But aren't you really glad he's not a police officer?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Because that's what he was toying with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So they had a whole investigation into him. In fact, the trial ended up being one of the longest and most expensive ones in Scottish history. The investigation into him was called Operation Field.
Well, the Scottish will say that about everything.
It was Operation Field. It started in 2008. And they went back and they looked at Claire Morris's death. And then the New Zealand police re-examined the second crash. So, yeah, he was charged in 2009 by the Sheriff of Aberdeen.
Oh.
With Claire's murder and the attempted murder of Felicity as well, and attempting to become a bigamist.
Fucking hell.
It was 5 years and 1,000 people were interviewed.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and he was only convicted recently in 19th of May 2011. Yeah, longest ever criminal trial in Scotland for a single accused. And he was found guilty. 9 women on the jury and 6 men.
He's now in a relationship with 3 of those women. All the men think he's a great guy. He got life minimum of 30 years. He shouldn't be let out. He's a danger to...
Yeah, he really is. Well, he was removed from the nursing register, you'll be pleased to hear. But also...
Oh, that's...
The convictions, they were either unanimous or by majority. So there wasn't anything really... Yeah, he's already said, apparently, to people in prison with him, he expects to die there. And he said it's really boring in prison.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. He'd been attacked the year that he was in prison, first in prison, 2011, with a metal pole. And apparently he now refuses to shower.
Oh.
And what he did in the end, you'll love this, he hired a convicted child molester to protect him. So he pays this... child molester to sort of give him protection.
Fucking hell. What a bunch of cunts.
Different world, innit, mate?
I hope he's having the worst time in there.
It doesn't sound like he's having a right laugh. When you got to get a nonce in for protection, it doesn't feel ideal, does it?
No, when you've got to get someone everyone
Yeah.
hates. Although maybe it's like, in the sort of the hierarchy in a prison, maybe it's like, oh, hang on, you're a paedophile. You stand in front of me, you take the punches. They're good for you before they're good for me. It's all very, ugh.
Now, he did get some stuff on appeal. In 2013, they quashed his convictions for fire raising, but everything else has been upheld. And then he started to appeal in 2014, but then he dropped that. At the end of 2014, he said, I want to review all my sentence and conviction. And Claire's brother said, why the hell are they wasting time on a review? He was found guilty in court, and then Scotland's 3 most senior judges confirmed the verdict at appeal stage. What is wrong with the Scottish criminal justice system? How many opportunities do they give someone to appeal?
Well, I actually agree with that.
And, well, Peter, Claire's brother, wrote to Webster and went, OK, tell me why you're innocent. And he didn't ever reply to him. So the last thing was in 2016, his review was rejected. Yep. And it's not gone to the High Court. So there we go.
Wow.
That is Malcolm Webster.
What a horrible person.
He's fucking horrible. Absolutely horrible. Thank you so much for listening for this episode and for being so patient with it. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, should we book in another one for later this week? Or just bang them out?
Yeah, let's get a few done this week.
Yeah.
We're here now, aren't we?
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming to our Fringe shows.
Thank you.
You can see Rachel doing Can I Be Awful at 5:40.
5:40.
In the Hive, Monkey Barrel, and I'm at 7:05, so you can see us both on the same day if you fancy. I'm doing my Home Truths show at Monkey Barrel 3. Thank you so much. And if you have your dad anywhere, make sure he doesn't wander into someone's bedroom in a t-shirt with Marion saying, it's a me, cardio, which is what he's been wearing, despite the fact that he can't walk upstairs anymore. Bye!